in multiple situations. We're lots of buyer competition. It is definitely a listing market for sure.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Welcome back to The Closing Table. I am your host. I go by the name of Kevin McIntosh, and we will be joined today by real estate professional Tiffany Schwegel. How you doing, Tiffany?
I'm good. How are you? This is my cat.
Absolutely great. Hey, how you doing? We got another guest on the show.
Yeah. 2 for 1.
Hey, Tiffany, we brought you here to The Closing Table because we want to discuss real estate, obviously, specifically in your market with your experience. But before we even get into that, I want to just kind of soften a blow and start off with an icebreaker. Quick game. It's called Fill in the Blank. I have about 3 sentences here, all related to real estate, but they are not complete. There's some blanks in there. I need you to fill those in with some context that makes sense. Sounds good?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get it started. First word, sentence. Every real estate agent needs to know blank.
Every real estate agent needs to know their craft. Do your continuing education. Learn as much as you can.
Good point. Next one. Not only am I a realtor, but I am also a blank.
Not only am I a realtor, but I'm also a single mom. And I also love charcuterie, wine, books, so much more. Yeah, there's a lot more to it, but first and foremost, I'm a real estate agent.
Nice. There it is. Lastly, first thing to do when you're buying a home is blank.
Get pre-approved. Know your budget. It saves you a lot of heartache. Yep. Definitely.
Yep, that sounds about right. Coming from a real estate professional, definitely make sure you know the numbers and you get it pre-approved first. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for playing our short little fill in the blank game. We already pretty much broke the seal in regards to who you are, Tiffany, but let's make it official with an introduction in 60 seconds or less, if you can. Why don't you tell us, the audience, who is Tiffany Schwegel outside of real estate?
Outside of real estate, I am a huge advocate for travel. I love traveling. I travel with my son. We have a plan to hit every continent. So that's our bucket list. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, travel's a big thing. And then outside of travel is mostly education. I plan on going back to school and getting my master's. I love learning. I can't stop. Unfortunately, I have to pay for it, but I'm willing to.
Right. Okay. Nice. Beautiful. Thanks for letting us into Tiffany a little bit more. So let's get into the professional side of things, starting with your current market. I want you to describe right now your current market for an audience who may have never been there, may never plan to be there, and unless you can paint a good picture. Let's start geographically. Where are you geographically, locations, surrounding areas, notable landmarks, attractions, things to do, etc.?
Geographically, Cleveland, Ohio. So we're North Coast. We're right on Lake Erie, and our market is kind of bonkers right now. I think like everyone's experiencing that, right? It's, we're in multiple situations. We're lots of buyer competition. It is definitely a listing market for sure. I'm obviously representing for my Cavaliers tonight. We have a playoff game, so hopefully they do well. But yeah, the market's really strong. It's just a limited amount of homes out there for everybody, unfortunately.
Right. Okay. So first and foremost, just to put it on record, this episode is going to come out after that game, so hopefully we're celebrating. Hopefully, it's going to be bad timing if it comes out and they take that. All right.
I'm burn this sweatshirt.
But With that being said, though, Cleveland, I like for different agents to talk about their markets, the condition, what it looks like, because it paints a picture for people who've never been there.
Right.
But it also, we have so many different agents from different markets. And sometimes we hear that there's the same thing going on in these markets, but sometimes it's a little bit different. So I want to thank you for that because, that gives us a little bit clarity into the greater Cleveland area. But I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. Are there any particular areas within that greater metro Cleveland area that are experiencing a higher demand for housing? And why do you think that is? Why are they so popular?
I would say on the east side, I'm noticing like downtown Willoughby area. That is a really great walkable neighborhood. So that's something that not a lot of our suburbs have here. So when you do find like that little niche where you can walk to a coffee shop, you can walk to a bakery, a hot dog shops, anything, it's super important. And I think they're seeing a huge boom because of that. It's got some really trendy restaurants, really trendy bars. And like I said, the walkability is great. So people are flocking to it. Lots of younger people too. And Sugar and Falls is another one. Very, very great downtown area. Great walkability. Anytime you have that, you'll see a lot of demand.
Okay. That sounds good. I know it's right off the water. I've never been to Cleveland, not that I recall. But how is it during the wintertime? Let's talk about that.
Well, it is a little chilly. You're up in Michigan, right?
Correct.
Well,
I know. I'm similar. We're similar, so. Yeah. Right off the water, I imagine they have a few brutal winters.
We do. We get something
like
called
we do.
lake effect. And
yeah.
That we can get dumped on with the snow, but it's actually very beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
It is beautiful. Yep. I have to admit, as cold as it gets, sometimes it is really, really beautiful.
And that's the point I was driving at too. We're in those states, we're in the Midwest, in the areas where we do experience actual snow during the actual winter season. But with that being said, I say this all the time. I'd rather take that snow than some other natural disaster that we're not used to. A tornado, a hurricane, or whatever the case may be. Something that'll essentially probably do some damage to your property too, with that being said. But nonetheless, there's beauty in our winters. There's beauty in the snow and things. We actually have things to do during the winter. So I'm glad you kind of made that point. I want to kind of put that out there. So thank you first and foremost. Tiffany, you said this when we did our quick game earlier in regards to pre-approvals before you buy. I also saw that you mentioned 3 types of lender letters. There's a pre-qualification, pre-approval, fully underwritten pre-approval. I had no idea these 3 different types exist. Can you talk about the differences between the two and how do you obtain the different types?
Absolutely. So the first one is really, in my opinion, just a piece of paper. The bank probably knows your name. And you may or may not have an account there, or your lender knows your name, but that's really about it. It's something that we'll see like from, I don't know, like Rocket Mortgage, one of those huge national lenders. The next one, the pre-approval letter, is a little more in depth. They verified your work history. They verified your income. The last one is fantastic. The last one is completely underwritten. So that means that the lender actually went through all the steps. The underwriting process was completed. The initial underwriting process was completed, and you are fully underwritten for that loan amount, which is great. And in this competitive market, it's a fantastic way to get your best foot forward. Your offer, in my opinion, is going to look a lot stronger than someone that comes in with just a piece of paper.
It's interesting. Okay. So you gave an example of a company that would give you the pre-qualification paper. I get it. We're here to talk business, so it's fine. So with that being said, are there like certain lenders you go to for the different types, or are there certain parts within the process that you get different types, or how do you actually obtain these different types of letters?
So when I know one of my listings is going to be really, really hot and I'm going to get 20 offers on it, I will put in the broker remarks that offers need to be accompanied by a local lender. So we're not going to take anything from national lenders. And that's really because, and it's not that they're not going to necessarily get the job done. It's because of their customer service. You
Oh,
literally
wow.
never talk to the same person twice, and you are constantly just handed down the line. And in order to close something on time, which is very important, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, it's just not a good process in my opinion. And when you have a local
Hmm.
lender and someone that you work with all the time, they have the process down. I have their cell phone numbers. I can text them on a Sunday. It's super important to me to have that level of
Great.
service.
Great point.
Uh-huh.
Great point. That has not been discussed. I mean, that's one of those
Yeah,
mind blowing moments. Never thought about that. Comparing a national lender to someone local
correct.
that you can work with. You deal with a national lender, you might have to text them or do a live chat support or
Right.
something like that. When all you really want to do is call and talk
Yes,
to a
have a
person. And when you talk to
conversation.
them, you want to talk to the same person, not have to deal with someone who typed in notes and sent it to another
Exactly.
person. I never thought about that. Great perspective on that, by the way. Okay. You also talked about how a seller can make some very costly pricing errors
Uh-huh.
in this market when they're listing their property. How do you manage a client who wants to sell for the highest profit, potentially even with no contingencies?
Yeah.
Let's just throw that in there. But due to the market conditions right now, how do you manage that when they're just looking for the highest profit?
So,
When the property may not even be worth that.
right. So, one of the things that I tell people is that buyers are very smart. Now, it is competitive. I agree. But buyers are very smart nowadays. All the information's out there for them. With
Right, right.
Zillow, with Realtor.com, it isn't like they're going in this blindly. So they have
Mm-hmm.
all the information. They know what your property sold for previously. They know what you're asking now. They see the
True,
improvements that were made. And if those
true.
things don't make sense to them, your property will sit. And in this market, if it's sitting for 20 days, it starts to get a stigma almost attached to it, like something's wrong with
It's
it.
true.
And you will need
Mm.
to do a price reduction. The market's going to tell you what your house is worth. So so pricing is so important. And that's really what I tell people is if you come in too high, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. Super important to be
Mm.
competitive.
Mm. No, that's true. Why is it? That made me think of something that I heard recently on one of the episodes. It says something in regards, and I might just be thinking out loud with this. Something in regards to when you place a home on the market, as opposed to just putting it on the MLS, you have to make sure it's completely ready to be
Yes.
sold. With the most professional pictures, cleaning and all
Correct.
that, and they said that because the science would be like you just said, if you have it up there and let's say it's not attractive or trying to attract enough buyers and it sits up there for so long, that stigma of it being up there so long, people start to look and say, why is it up there? What's wrong with this? You start to have that. So if you're going to put it up there and list it might as well be done with the fullest potential that it could
Correct.
have to
Needs to
actually
be,
sell.
yes. And my sellers sometimes are like, oh my gosh, you have so much work for us to do. But that work is because I know how to package everything perfectly.
Right.
So in that first day when everything hits the market, yours is going to get the most traffic. And that's the
Mm,
biggest, that's the biggest drive, for that competitive price increase when people are
right.
making offers. You need it to be packaged perfectly. You need all the information and it needs to look stunning. And so
Mm.
once you have
Hmm.
all that together, it's just a recipe for success, really.
I'm glad you also just mentioned, so I can do this all day. But you mentioned that and I hear this a lot, right? As an agent, you'll give your sellers a checklist of things to
Yes.
do to prepare their home,
Yes.
right? Has it been a situation where you provided a checklist and the seller just said, I cannot do this.
Yeah.
I'd rather work with someone else?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Really?
I've lost listings because of that. And it's
Wow.
not for everybody. And that's really kind of when I had to really kind of take a step back and realize that I had to go into listing appointments and ask people what their motivation was first. I know what my motivation is. My motivation is to put blood in the
Okay.
water, let sharks circle. That's my
Ooh.
job. But that
Okay.
might not be everybody's motivation. They might want to not have to
Hmm.
do anything. They might just want to wash their hands of it and leave. Or it might be as soon as, the quickest, the better. It might be we need to have time in our house after we close. We need, 30 days, 45 days after we close. So really it was me understanding what their motivation was and sort of evolving my tactic around that.
Yeah, man, that is crazy. I hate to say this, but I got to speak from the heart.
Yeah.
That sounds like the laziest thing when someone tells you there's a checklist of things to potentially sell your house for the best price ever. Said, nah, I don't want to clean. I got to clean this house? Like, what?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's probably like the biggest thing on there. Just clean.
Just clean. Declutter and clean. That is the biggest thing. I know some people just don't want to. I mean, I did have it. Sometimes it's situational. I have had a family that had twins, like newborn twins, and they were struggling. And I get it.
Oh, yeah.
And I understood. So it was, you just have a different tactic.
Right. I also love your analogy of it's your job to put the blood in the water and let the sharks kind of like find. I love that. I'm just going to take that and use that for a different conversation. Right. I just wanted to let you know. Gen Zers are tracking ahead of their parents' home ownership rate. Millennials buy more homes than other generations. Just some quick notes that I found online. National Association of Realtors, Housing of Urban Development and things of that nature. How do you see the real estate market evolving in the next few years with the influx of younger buyers like Gen Z and millennials?
So Gen Zers and millennials, I call them my younger buyers because I just turned 49 this year. So they're my younger
congratulations.
Buyers. They're, like I said, they're super informed. They are technologically savvy. They have all the information at their fingertips.
Yeah.
And they want you to make it happen. I love working with them because they are like instant gratification, and I love this fast-paced market. So it really lends to a great relationship for me. I don't have a problem with it at all. I love it. They're very quick, which I love. They'll a lot of texting, which I don't mind at all. But they're very quick to make a decision, and they like getting it done, which I love.
I love that perspective. That literally speaks to that. Literally describes the younger market, the texting part, the information. We're in the age of information. So yes, obviously, but I've also heard, that's why I kind of laughed when you said that the gratitude they show. I've heard that also from different agents to show that this younger generation appreciates it more. They appreciate the help more. They're soaking in the knowledge more. They're not acting like they know everything, even though they have access to the information. They're not acting like in most cases. I know there's exceptions to all rules.
That's very true. They're almost like students in a way. Like they're willing to listen and they take it in, and which is great. I mean, you do come across clients, you typically have an older generation that are know-it-alls, and those can be difficult to deal with. But yeah, I would say the Gen Zers, the millennials, they're very open. They love being walked through the the different steps.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I think that's a good consensus so far. We'll see how that picks up, continues throughout the real estate season. Pros and cons to waiting on purchasing a home. I want you to speak on this because a lot of people say the time now is, the time to buy is now, right now. But I want you to speak on both sides of the fence at this moment. What are some of the benefits and drawbacks of waiting to purchase a home, specifically in the Cleveland market?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I get asked this question all the time. So I have some sellers that are actually selling now, and they're going to find something to rent, and they're going to wait. So that's definitely an option. So the conversation is, nobody has a crystal ball, right? No one knows what's going to happen. Trending wise, it seems like Cleveland, I would say that the coasts like New York and California, they do see a lot of ups and a lot of sharp downs. They rise and they fall. Cleveland kind of just stays steady. We don't really typically see too many ups, and like it's not as dramatic as those coasts are. So I would say waiting, it scares me a little bit because you could price yourself out of the market, which I've seen with my buyers. So I've had buyers that have started to look in like the 700,000 range, and then the interest rate goes up, and now they're at the $500,000 range. That's very, very different. Very
Yeah.
different. It's
Yeah.
very hard for them to reconcile that. So waiting, you do have to struggle with interest rates a little bit right now, unfortunately. However, if you do wait, rates might come down. I always
Mm-hmm.
like to say you date an interest rate and you marry a house.
Mary. Yeah.
So you can always refinance. You know,
Yes.
it's just sometimes a hard pill for people to swallow, which I totally understand. Um, Waiting, if it gets more competitive, then what are you going to do? You know, you're just pricing yourself out of the market completely, and rents are skyrocketing right now in the Cleveland area.
Oh
It's
yeah.
very, very expensive to rent, and you have nothing to show
Oh
for it at the
yeah.
end. You have no equity. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my caution on waiting. Um, I think if you are a willing and able buyer and you find that perfect home right now, there is no reason for you to wait.
True.
Like I said, interest rates drop, you can always refinance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See, what I also kind of like about that is we've had this conversation before. We experienced some historic lows with interest rates during the
Historic.
pandemic in the last couple. I'm talking about,
Yeah.
you will probably never see this again in your
Probably
lifetime.
not.
And if you do, it's not going to be good because we're probably going to face we're probably facing some type of catastrophe.
Correct.
If from my perspective, opinion. So with that being said, and I had to do this also, and I want to share this. I literally had to look at the interest rates from today, take that microscope and broaden it out. So look at the interest rates from the last 50 years, going back to the 70s to now.
It's outrageous.
In perspective, we're looking at some low rates, relatively speaking.
they're
I mean,
still
we were
low.
talking about 12%, 14% at one
Crazy.
point, clearly. But I mean, to put it in perspective also, the prices were different. Home
Right.
prices were different. Wages were different.
Cost of
Things of
living
that
was
nature.
different.
So, correct. So overall, I think it's all relative to the market, to the current, to the inflation rate, the current prices and things like that. But nonetheless, you hit it right on the head, the nail on the head. If you find a home that works for you and you are in the position to pay for it without drowning yourself, take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. I think that's the one consensus that we can get from the closing table. So thank you for speaking on that, Tiffany. It makes sense. Makes sense. Well, thank you again for coming to the closing table, Tiffany. We appreciate your knowledge, you sharing it, dropping some gems. Before we get out of here, if you have any last words and or want to tell the people how they can reach out to you, please do so now.
Sure. My name, again, is Tiffany Schwegel. I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams in the Cleveland market. My phone number, it is my cell number. You can text me or call me, 440-477-3065.
Well said. Thank you again, Tiffany, for being here with us and giving us $1 million worth of game at the closing table. For our YouTube audience watching right now, this is your job to hit the like button if you've gotten this far in the video. Also, make sure you hit the share button so you can share with other people, tell a friend to tell a friend, and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platforms, we are expecting the same standards. Give us a like, 5-star rating, and also subscribe to our channel for the latest content. Tiffany, we got to leave the audience with a question before we leave here, just to get their brains turning. What are some of the most common questions or concerns you have as a buyer or seller, and how are you addressing these, or have you addressed these in the past? Don't tell us right now, just leave your comments below. Besides that, we'll talk to you next time.